I recently finished watching Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, and there's been a ton of videos I've wanted to make about it, but one of the ones that I just wanted to pump out and finish quickly is my top Jojo's first up, number 6, last place, but you know, it doesn't really mean a lot because these are all great characters, but I have Jonathan Joestar, which, I like him. I like that he's admirable. I honestly don't really like Hamon, but especially with him specifically, where he's kind of just spamming the same move, but I just think he's a little bit bland, which I think everybody kind of thinks that. I think for most people, he's their least favorite JoJo, but I don't know, somebody can prove me wrong. But, he's admirable, he's cool, kind of bland. I don't really like his design, but that's besides the point. But, yeah, honestly, I think I can just move on to the next one, which is definitely gonna get me flamed. Like, I know a lot of people, it's their favorite, of all time. I think almost everybody that I've met that talks about JoJo's is either him or, Jotaro, but, my number 2, or my number 5 spot is Joseph Joestar, which, like I said, I know I'm gonna get flamed, but he's just not really my type of character. I just like more advanced, or more well-written characters. Not to say that he isn't well-written, but I like slightly more complex characters, which my number 1 is gonna make that really, maybe sound like a hypocrite, but I don't know. I just personally don't like his personality as much as a lot of other people. His over-the-top silliness. He can be really funny, though. And just because he's not in my top 4 or even top 3 isn't because I don't like him. It's just because I think there's such a high criteria. And out of all of the JoJo's, there has to be a number 5 and a number 6. So he's down here, not because he's not good, but just because he's not my personal type of character. And then finally at number 4, I have Jotaro, which is another one. I definitely am going to get flamed for having both of these so low. But, that's kind of just what I like about the community, how everyone can have their own opinions. And I think he's a great character. I just didn't like him as much in his own part, in part 3. And his personality then, or even later, I think can be a little bit stale. But I think what's really entertaining about him is how he's kind of just top G. He protects basically the whole bloodline. At least to me, I feel like he's kind of like a guardian to the Joestars, and usually pulls through and kind of keeps them safe, at least tries. Honestly, the whole part 6 class, the whole first universe, but yeah, he couldn't really do anything. Pucci was too strong. Overall, I think he's a great character, and honestly, I wish I could have him higher, but my top 3 are just all, just my favorite of, I don't even know how to describe it until I get there without spoiling, but I think he's a great character. I love his, relevance in the story, and I think, if anything, he deserves to be as relevant as he is, because he's a great character. He's just not, personally, like I said, top 3. But kicking off the top 3, which I think a lot of people hate her for some reason, but Jolene is my 3rd favorite JoJo character, and honestly, the whole top 3 are kind of interchangeable. I feel like they all have different things that I love about them, and my opinion kind of changes from day to day. And just thinking about each one's strong suits kind of can even change my opinion in the moment. But I think Jolene is overall the weakest out of my top 3. But I really love her flair. I think she's probably the most exciting whether it's the most entertaining. It's definitely the most exciting to watch. Just because she's really kind of erratic and interesting. I also like her transformation from kind of being not a wimp, but kind of just like a sissy to being just a much more competent fighter and character in general. I think she would be even higher, but I think part of what I associate with her character is me associating with part 6, and I feel like part 6 is honestly carried by Poochie, which is one of my favorite villains of all time. So, that's not gonna, I don't know, I tried my best to separate the characters from their parts when making this list, especially since I probably want to do a list on my top 6 favorite parts. Maybe even I'll do that after Steel Ball Run releases. But number 2, my second favorite, technically, honestly, all 3, like I said, are interchangeable. My second favorite is Giorno. And I know a lot of people are probably not going to think this is a valid take at all. A lot of people kind of hate on him as well. But for him, I think a different reason than Jolene. I think a lot of people just don't like Jolene because she's a girl. But Giorno, I really love his determination. Like, he really makes me feel like I can do just about anything. I like his confidence and his determination in his family. And just his loyalty to his family. Like, I don't even know what this says. This part of the script just says, his gang. I don't really know. But, I don't know. I also just kind of love, like, he crashes out. Not, like, a big crash out. Just, like, cussing out people like Chicolata. Chicolata. I don't know. That guy sucked, though. But, yeah, I also just like the way he brings his crew together. And I think he's a bigger part of, he has a better crew, and he's a bigger part of the crew than any of the other JoJo's on the list. So that's why I have him this high up and in my top 3. And number 1, I'm process of elimination, but Josuke is easily my favorite just because of how relatable he is. I mean, I just love that he's kind of just like a kid from a small town that wants to hang out with his friends. He's basically just me. And I also really like his design, although I do think Giorno and Jolene's design are better than his. But he's also top tier, I just figured I'd mention that. I like his, like, pompadour, and his expressions can be really funny. And I also just think he's an entertaining character. Alongside that, he's kind of, like, not just relatable, but he's also, I don't know, he's just like me, for real. He's just a fun character to think about, and I also just like the town of Morio, which, again, I tried to keep it as separate as possible, but I love his involvement in, like, everything that happens in Moria, so that's why I have him at number 1. That also probably, I don't think it's controversial, because I think a lot of people love him too, but yeah, that's my top 6, and top 3, remember, are all interchangeable, and none of them are really there because they're bad, Even, like, Jonathan isn't a bad character, he just doesn't stack up against the rest of them. And there's a pretty big gap between, like, number 1 and number 2. Or not number 1 and number 2. I take that back fully. Number 5 and number 6, so, yeah. And it's all opinion, but, yeah, those are my top 6 JoJo's. Animated, whatever you want to call it, but, that's it. Have a good day.